Hello, welcome to another episode of SaaS Scaled. I'm pleased to have Lars at Dreamdata, and we are going to talk about the marketing data. We are going to talk about the business, the way he has started as CEO and co-founder at the company, and maybe if you get a chance, we can talk about the software ecosystem and a startup ecosystem in Denmark a little bit, where his company is located in. And so great discussion. Stay with us. Lars, welcome to the show and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Arman. I'm really looking forward to the conversation today.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? And also, we would like to know a little bit about the company, how you started.
Yeah, so my name is Lars. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Dreamdata. And as you said, it's based in Copenhagen, Denmark. So quite far away from probably a lot of listeners. So myself, I come from a product background. Most recently, I was at a company called Trustpilot, which is a Copenhagen-based unicorn, also a SaaS company where I led product. And I was leading product together with one of my co-founders, who's called Ole, and he was then the sort of tech engineering side of the dynamic duo at Trustpilot. Yeah. So that's my background. Dreamdata as a company came out of experiences that Ole and I had at Trustpilot around go-to-market. So basically we had, I would say, a fairly standard setup around go-to-market. It was a SaaS company. We had salespeople, we had marketing, we also had product-led growth. We were maybe a little bit ahead of the curve there. So basically in a go-to-market system, that means you have a lot of tracking data. You have a CRM system full of opportunities and contacts and accounts and activities, and you have like a marketing automation system. And you're spending, millions of dollars on advertising, on, all the venture dollars. They always seek back to Google. So a lot of money going back to Google through Google Ads and to LinkedIn, etc. So very standard setup. And still, we were struggling to figure out how we were doing really well. It was sort of a super healthy business growing really well. But we were struggling to figure out how were we actually growing, like what was actually driving the business forward, both at, say, a strategic level. So we had this mix of marketing, sales, and product. What was actually the successful drivers of the business? And if you asked in the management meeting, so like, okay, what's driving the business? There was like zero agreement on it. But also at a more tactical level, like we had a free product. Which features in the free product were actually driving successful business, or we were spending lots of dollars in marketing, which campaigns were driving successful outcomes. So pretty weird, like standard data set, but no answers. And we went sort of looking for a product that could help us fix this, something that would just magically connect our data sources and give us the answers we were looking for. And we found that it didn't exist. So, we are tech and product people. So we went to work and did sort of a big internal project and solved it like that. You obviously dreamed about it a lot. I think you obviously dreamed about that data a lot. It was definitely, I think that was where the name came from, because it was like, what do we really want? This is what we want. And that's where the project came from. And the thesis basically was that this could be a product, that even though it was a lot of hard work to build these data models, you could actually build something that would work for B2B companies out there. I think it was if you're thinking about go-to-market in business to consumer world, that is heavily automated. Like Amazon doesn't employ 1 million salespeople to sell all the stuff that they sell. So it's a very automated go-to-market. But in B2B, that automation of go-to-market is just happening now. And the systems and products that exist in business to consumer are not super well suited for business to business, because of, the business to business context is different. You have buying committees, and you have legal negotiations, and you have long sales cycles, and you have people changing jobs, and lots of things that are very different in business to business relative to business to consumer. And that means that you need some kind of a different solution for it. And the thesis was, okay, we could build that product. And that's what we set out to do then.
Fantastic. So you mentioned a number of names that, of course, are the most common tools in the market, like, for example, HubSpot on the marketing, like Salesforce on the sales part, like placing AdWords on Google or working with LinkedIn. But does your product also work with a variety of other environments? If someone said, I'm not using HubSpot, actually I'm using something else, maybe Market, or maybe something else, or I'm not using Salesforce, I'm using some other CRMs or these kind of things. How does it work from data point of view and the way you bring data to the system?
So, I mean, we are at early stage venture. We are 4 years into the project now, but we do support many other systems than just HubSpot and Salesforce. So we do support, say, Marketo, or we support Pardot. We support Pipedrive, Close, Microsoft Dynamics. So we do support
a number of
when
other
you build products, when you build products, I think just by supporting, say, the Salesforce Pardot, Marketo part of the ecosystem, that's already a pretty big market.
Sure.
So we are going at the sort of expanding gradually, and we're finding that there are certain systems that we will meet now and then when we're selling where we don't support it, and sometimes we decide to build and then start supporting that product. But we have a fairly good inflow of inbound customers that sort of fit within the tech ecosystem that we support.
Fantastic.
But it is, if you compare to something like sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
If you compare to something like an ETL product, where the business of the company is to do ETL, like it could be Fivetran, or it could be Segment, or another product. Of course, then your job is to move all types of data in the world into the data warehouse, typically, right? But that's not our goal. Our goal is to support sort of, you say, early adopters of advanced B2B companies that are doing a marketing-led growth motion. We want to support those, and that sort of limits the scope of what we have to support. We don't have to support 50 or 100 integrations. Or let's say, if you're in the business to consumer space, people are buying ads from like so many different sources. So, in the business to consumer space, there are like ETL tools that are specialized in just ETLing advertising data, because you need your business. There's like 500 platforms that you need to support. But in business to business, it's more limited.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think from go-to-market strategy, that's the right way to go, right? So that definitely your approach is very sound, because you wanted to go do 80-20. So if 20% of the systems you support covers 80% of the market size, that's the best place to start. And really, that might be great when you start something at the beginning, and that's the right way to do. Now, this is a good segue to jump into the go-to-market strategy and product market fit and those other topics. So how do you, based on what you do and also based on your experience, how do you see that you can help with the technology you have developed companies understand a better product market fit faster, so they can really pass that phase that is the riskiest phase of any startup, software startup, to pass that phase as fast as possible, understand the product fits this market, define their market based on their product very well, and say, we are there, we are out of that dangerous zone. how do you think your
Yeah.
technology, can help them to do that faster?
I think that's a super good question. Like, how do you do an efficient sort of step from I have an idea to I'm at product market fit? I will be quite honest and say that maybe our product is not really good at that. Unfortunately, we are. I think our customer. I think it's not that we used our product pre-product market fit ourselves, and we were happy about using it. But the real sort of power of our product is more at a sort of growth stage or business as usual stage. That's where you really have where I think finding product market fit, it's something I'm super passionate about, but I think it is often done through other means, right? It's through, I think one of the things I learned by doing a company over just doing product management was I learned, and I know lots of product managers probably know this, but I didn't. But I always thought of product market fit as very sort of product oriented. You had to build a product that would fit with the market. And I think one of the big things I learned was it goes both ways. You build a product, but you also have to figure out what the market is. And you can have a really good product and it has zero product market fit in one market. But if you find the right market, you might have product market fit. So I think that motion of sort of iterating the product to a good product and iterating the market to find the product market fit, I think it's super exciting to do. But for me, it is a lot of qualitative work. It's typically it's also a lot of sales work. It's a lot of engaging with customers and finding who will actually pay for this magnificent product that you're building, right? So it's sort of something that has to meet each other. Yeah.
Is it true to say, for example, if I'm running different campaigns and I'm targeting with each campaign a different segment of the market, and if I can see my data clearly that which one has a higher return on investment, in other words, when I put my money in one of these, it returns my money faster if I target this part of the market, or if I do this positioning or this messaging. That's how I thought that if I'm using Dreamdata and I'm getting my data analytics faster, so it gives me the insight I need, it just automatically, not automatically meaning with no effort, but meaning it helps me to do it faster, right? So better understand, okay, this is where I should really put my attention. This is what market tells me that they get a better result from my product than the other part of the market. And I think that's really the part that for most part, many companies, many startups are lacking, because either the data doesn't come back to them the way they want, or the data comes back when it's too late. And if you get the data back, it takes more than 6 months, 9 months, 1 year, not useful anymore, because then it takes a while for you to change the product and you cannot afford to really go back and correct it and try again. The cycle has to be much faster in order to be efficient.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. I think that's a fundamental thing.
Yeah, and that's what I can
our product does help.
Yeah. Your product helps with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I think you can say our product you can think of it as 3 layers. There's like a data layer, which is ingesting the data, processing the data, building data models. And that is, of course, super exciting if you're a data person. And you can use that data directly. And then we have sort of an analytics layer where you can do analytics on top of the data, figure out what works, what doesn't work, but you're still required to take action yourself. And then we're building sort of a 3rd layer now, which is like direct actions on top of the data. So basically, it's a little bit similar. If you're in a modern data stack, you'll be using reverse ETL maybe to automate data back So we're building sort of specific use cases for reverse ETL, giving audiences back to ad platforms or giving data back to CRM systems so that a salesperson can work faster, like that type of thing.
And what combination of customers you have geographically, if you think about, for example, US versus Europe, is it distributed? Is it the majority of the customers you have are US based or Europeans or mixed?
So we have a nice mix. US is our biggest market, so it's about a third of our business. We're from Denmark, so we have disproportionate, like Denmark is a very small country. It's like 6 million people. So we have a disproportionate large share of business that's Danish, but it's still quite small. And then we have sort of rest of Europe. Of course, Germany is quite big for us. We have targeted companies that are like that accept an English-only version of the product. I think that's been a fundamental starting point for us. So that also sort of it's more of like a slice in the market that can accept that. But the biggest market for us is definitely US, and also where we see the biggest growth potential for us.
Okay, fantastic. What do you think would be the next step from your perspective for what you guys do? Is the next major milestone that you wanted to really accomplish within the product and the strategy or the business?
I would say from a product standpoint, I'm super excited about feeding data back to platforms, what I was talking about before. I think some of this is we are using other products for it ourselves at the moment. We're using a product called High Touch for it. We're super happy about it, but it is very complicated to do. And some of the use cases, it's a little bit like the whole product. It's very complicated to do, but it's definitely something you can productize if you're sort of accepting that you're not going to do reverse ETL for the entire world. You're just going to do it for like a limited set of use cases that are very important to go-to-market people. So building that, I think I'm very excited about feeding data back to ad platforms so that they can do better machine learning on top of that data. That's a fundamental thing. Or building great audiences that you can, there's a lot of complexity at the moment around sort of how can I, if somebody's visiting me or I know somebody exists, how can I actually then target them with ads? It's becoming harder and harder with sort of changes in technology around cookies, etc. So sort of having good ways of building audiences, passing them off to advertising platforms is very interesting. So those are the things I'm very, very excited about currently.
Now, talking about that particular aspect, as you said, as we go forward with more awareness around data, and people want to be in control of their own data. In early years of internet and web, that it was still, that was something that nobody paid attention to it yet. And then it was, as you said, cookies and, the idea that I'm actually generating data and who owns that data, that was not discussed in details. But nowadays, as we go forward and we have more policies, especially in some states in the US, like California, or Europeans are very aware of that and are passing some kind of regulations and laws in the ultimate solution that really people own their own data and they can really, there's a data privacy and everything. But at the same time, marketers want a system that they can benefit people. So the more intelligent the system of marketing is, the better for consumers would be. Rather than I just receive non-related ads, I'd rather to receive some ads that actually I'm interested in and I benefit from. And I don't have any intention to increase the marketing budget of the manufacturer or whoever is marketing to me and just that automatically will be added to the cost of the product I'm going to buy. And for no good reason, I don't want to just cause them to spend more on marketing. I rather for them to be smart and intelligent and responsible. So how do you think this will kind of go to get there in a kind of nice middle ground that it doesn't really, if it's end of cookies, if it's end of, if Apple devices are going to every year be worse and worse from marketers' perspective to really track the viewers and they get no data out of it. And at the end of the day, how do you see this will impact the kind of work that you guys do from connecting the data and understanding who's coming from where, who's spending on what, and then, connecting the revenue number and connecting the traffic number and everything together? How does it impact? How do you see it's going? And, what is your view in the next 5 years with regard to those kind of things?
That's a very good question. I think maybe at one end there is sort of I feel that there's a differentiation between business to consumer and business to business. I think a lot of what we see in terms of privacy regulation is coming out of practices that were happening in the business to consumer space. And basically, you can say, I would agree that a lot of advertisers or tech platforms will be overreaching and doing things that were like creepy or not nice to be exposed to. I think the way I think about it is a bit like I go down the high street, I go into a shop, I buy a pair of shoes. Next day I come back to the same shop and, the guy I bought the shoes from, he comes over and says, hey, I remember you bought the shoes yesterday. Are you looking for, I don't know, a bag to go with those shoes? I don't necessarily feel that that's weird. I think that's good service. It's like the person in the shop is remembering me, remembers what I did. I think that is, for most people, that's good service. I think what gets creepy is if I, the next day I go into another shop. It's completely unrelated. It's actually like a tech shop or whatever. And they say, hey, I know you bought those shoes, but you also looked at this bag, but I actually have a cheaper version of that bag. Don't you want to buy that? I think that's the kind of thing where people freak out when you're sort of like, how do you know that? I don't think that it's natural that you know what I did somewhere completely unrelated. And I think that was basically what was happening in this world of tracking and retargeting and targeting of consumers. And I think that brought a lot of people to the conclusion that they didn't like that. And I kind of understand that. The big movement that has been happening in the market to mitigate this, and that's maybe the last at least 5 years or so, is like this movement towards first-party data. Of course, there's out on the fringes, there is a bunch of tech giants and also smaller ad companies that are fighting this wave of sort of like, I don't like this. So they're trying to sort of, they're playing catch up against Apple and other tech vendors that are fixing this. But for most people, the solution is first-party data. So it's saying, hey, I'm going to care about the data I have. So I'm going to do my best to remember that you were in my shop yesterday. I'm going to do my best. If you told me your name, I'll try to remember it so I can say, hey, Arman, great shoes. So first-party data is really the solution for this. And that's fundamentally what you do is all the data that is in your CRM system, your marketing automation, your tracking, that is first-party data. That's data that you as a company has generated with your systems. And that's the solution. And then, of course, you have to be careful about how you treat that data. I think there's a very big movement towards thinking a lot about what actually happens to that data. I remember maybe the bad old days when, if we wanted to try a new go-to-market system in some company, I'm not going to say which, then we would just connect it. We wouldn't really think about, okay, I'm connecting this go-to-market system. That means that now they can see the email addresses of a lot of people, and why should they be seeing those, right? So there is a growing sort of awareness in the market that, hey, we have to take care of people's data. So one end, it's like first-party data. Take control of the data you as a company have about your customers. Make sure that you know it and you can work with it. And at the same time, let's be careful not to hand it off to someone who we don't know who is, where it's going to disappear. It's fine that you have your CRM system, that's Salesforce. Okay, they're going to have your customer data. That's probably fine. But maybe you don't want to connect some weird system that you don't really know what is, and they can then see all those email addresses, right? That's not okay.
That's great. Very good insight. Thank you. Now, I have a different topic. I would like to ask that question. We have seen some metropolitan areas growing at a different pace, in a different way, pre-COVID versus post-COVID. For example, I spent 2 months during the last few months. I was in Miami, and that ecosystem is booming, right? Post-COVID, Miami is booming. It's especially for people in crypto, Web3, virtual reality, maybe even video games. That ecosystem is just growing like crazy, growing fast. It's a good ecosystem. And they have access to, 50 nations of, Latin America. And they have access to, of course, the US and, Canada and everything. It's a good hub. You see in a different way that also has helped cities like Austin, Texas, which I'm right now, that has been growing faster post-COVID for many reasons, especially in SaaS market. They are growing very fast amongst other segments that they have done a good job. On the contrary, you see some areas, maybe the growth pattern has changed or is changing. And Bay Area, which I used to live there for 4 or 5 years before. And then you see that post-COVID, it was a different Bay Area, Silicon Valley, that it was before COVID. And I think COVID many people moved out, working remotely, and those kind of in-person gatherings every day, every minute, every hour, all of these software guys, going to those kind of things is happening more virtually. People are not there anymore. So you see a different kind of pattern is getting shaped over there. How do you see, Copenhagen and Denmark in a kind of software industry and in a kind of a startup? Do you see any changes pre-COVID, post-COVID? How it's shaping? I have heard that it's growing market. It's very a startup-friendly kind of environment, and many startups starting there. But how do you see it pre-COVID, post-COVID? How does it do?
I think a lot of what is changing in Copenhagen is, and that also goes for other tech hubs in Europe. At least I think it's more about sort of, let's say, funding cycles that you have. In the Bay Area, of course, you have a long history of venture-backed companies where you have exits, and then that sort of spawns an ecosystem. Whereas in Denmark, that's something that is happening much later. And some of what is then creating sort of a boom in startups and in successful, growth stage companies is more, I feel it's about, that there's a wave of successful startups that spawns sort of a generation of people coming out of those startups. Maybe they have done well. They have a little bit of, they had some equity, so they can afford to go and work without salary for a while and build a company, and that creates a wave. And I think actually Copenhagen is doing really well now. If you go to Sweden and you look at something like Stockholm, that wave was happening. They are sort of, I can't remember, like they're maybe on the third wave of this. They had some earlier successes than Copenhagen, which sort of drove the ecosystem forward faster. Right now is a really good time here. We had like a handful of really successful companies and funding journeys that spawned sort of good companies. But it's still like, if you compare to the States, it's on a very small scale. But it's good.
Okay, fantastic. That's good to hear. So I'm going to ask you also if you could to introduce or share with us some of the books that you like, some of the books that you have read, and you thought that those are kind of, the life is not the same after you read that book comparison to before reading the book. Some books are like that and they have a very good impact in what you do and maybe the business, maybe your life. It can be either, books related to what you do professionally or not. Is there anything that comes to your mind and say, this is really the kind of book I really liked it?
I think like one of the most influential books for me has been a guy called Marty Kagan, Loved, which is sort of about building tech products. So that has been a very influential book for me. Sort of how do you build tech products in, like, what is the modern way of building tech products? So I think that has been sort of a very influential book for me. It's not a new book. I think it's more than 10 years old, but it's like, of course, there are some new editions of it. So that's a very good book. And then I would say more recently, also related to what I said around sort of product market fit and the role of finding the market, because that has been maybe the new part of the journey here, because we had built products before, but this sort of, how do you match it to the market, has meant that I have been quite interested in the marketing side of this. How do you actually sort of define your market? I read a book by April Dunford called Obviously Awesome, which is about product marketing. And I think that was very exciting for me to read. And I think getting to understand what product marketing is and how insanely important it is in an early stage startup, because actually I feel like product marketing is almost like, next to product, probably it is the most important thing you can be doing, because that is figuring out who you're selling to, how you're selling. That book I really loved.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Lars, for being here with us today. I enjoyed the conversation, and definitely I will follow you on LinkedIn, and I would love to, see how you guys grow, and I wish you all the best.
Thanks, Arman. I mean, it's been great talking to you, and I hope to see you sometime in Copenhagen.
I hope so.